Okay. So this, this is a continuation from last week, first of all, but it's also going much further and hopefully to emphasize what the opportunity of Purim represents and what we're trying to achieve. It comes down to you can summarize the entire thing by explaining it as the rectification of the 20. Right? Last week we explained the 20 represents one thing and one thing only: spiritual blindness, the inability to be able to see the hand of Hashem for whatever reason. It could be because the person's unqualified to do it; they haven't gone through the proper education. It could be because of the fact that they choose not to, because it's against their desire. For example, not wanting to recognize what's going on in the world today. Someone sent an article to me that the New York Times had an article writing saying that Israel has no proof that Iran is on a military track with its nuclear uranium enrichment and where it's going, the whole thing. There's no proof, and more than likely, if they go to war, they're going to pull America into a war that they don't want to be involved with. They don't want to get involved with. World War II is also such a war like that, and because it chose to stay out of that war, basically Pearl Harbor was eventually attacked. And that was a function of Hashgacha Pratis, because if you go back and you look, there's no way that attack on Pearl Harbor should ever have taken place for whatever reason. The historical facts don't add up. Meisa Shem Haisa Zos, Hinivas Beinenu, and that's what it took to get the Americans to wake up to a threat that existed, that was real. They chose to ignore it. And as a result, they got pulled into war and had a fight. They're the ones who dropped the nuclear bomb in the end. Likewise here also. Yeah, there's no question. I understand that the Americans don't want to get involved in a war with Iran. And who wants to? Do we want to? Do we want to get involved whatsoever? We haven't wanted to be involved in any wars the last 70-some odd years. It's always been defensive. It's always been because everybody else is coming after us. But the ridiculousness of the mentality of people to think for 1 second after Iran has over and over expressed a desire to wipe out Israel off the face of the map and every Arab nation around us. I mean, it's just something. This is a classic example of your mind is so open, your brains fall out type of a thing. And again, it's also on a deeper level, it's actually targeted towards us, because ultimately speaking, the leaders of the world are puppets in the hand of Hashem, and the way the world reacts. If we're not gonna. This is the bottom line, by the way. We're not going to be an Or Lagoy. If we're not going to be a light to nations, nobody else is going to be. And if you think they'll do it on their own, forget it. You want to see where the world goes when they don't get a chance to. Thank you very much. You don't get a chance to. That was just for you. They don't get a chance to develop it on their own. So eventually they'll walk down this path of confusion that eventually backfires on us in the end. They won't get involved. So this is what 20 represents. Going back to the brothers, we mentioned that this shows up in the fact that you cannot place a menorah higher than 20 amas. Thank you. Right, and Erev as well. The sukkah is a little bit different, but it's the same type of concept, because the whole point of the tzal, right, the whole point of the schach on top of the sukkah is to remind you of Hashgacha Pratis, that the Kodesh Baruch Hu is there all the time, protecting us, and therefore it's important that you sit in the shade of the schach, to remember the Anei Kavod, to remember the Kodesh Baruch Hu is there always with us, and if you're not going to sit in it, you're missing the whole point of the sukkah in the first place. So therefore, like the menorah, like the Erev is very, very much... it's actually a very deep idea, a very deep concept, because the whole point of an Arab, that's a different point, of an Arab, right, is to miyachid Klal Yisrael, right? We're taking what might be a Carmelis, in some more extreme cases, a Rishus Rabbim, a public domain, and by making an Arab, for some reason on my mind tonight, by making an Arab around the entire place, that it's miyachid everybody, and brings it all together, which fits beautifully with the whole concept of Purim, the idea of Kishuch Belevecha, because the opposite, the damage that the 20 does is it undoes the concept of Kishuch Belevecha. That the Jewish people got to Har Sinai, and when they finally got there, the experience of Har Sinai, the awesomeness of the event, the 50 days they traveled, right, the 50 days they traveled to get there, brought them to the level of Kishuch Belevecha, as we said last week. That's what creates the unity of Klal Yisrael, which makes possible Hashrasha Shechina. That the Shechina can dwell upon the Jewish people. That's when we become a Mishkan. That's the Mishkan we're supposed to become. Unfortunately, the Jewish people said Nasa v'nishma and Nishma, right? Only in Sefer Habris. 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 On Moshe had brought down the entire Sefer Torah from Bereshit until Parshas Yisro. He hadn't brought down the rest of it yet. That's what he was going to the mountain to get. They said Nasav and Nishma to that. They were holding the level Kishicha B'Levacha, so therefore they could do it Ahava, with love, because they were so outside themselves, they were unselfish. At that point, they were totally selfish. But the Egel Zahav undid all of that. It broke that up. It broke up Kishicha B'Levacha, which is what Amalek does. And as a result of that, so the Jewish people lost their unity, they lost their achdus, and they could not mekabel Torah Shval Peh, mi'ahava, in love, because of the fact that when you become selfish, you start nitpicking and saying, I don't want to do that, let's not do that. Only by Purim time, the Gemara says they were to rectify that, which means that by definition that Purim was the continuation, was the Shemos, it was the completion of the Har Sinai experience. And the same way the Jewish people got to the level Kishucha B'Levacha back by Har Sinai when Moshe asked them, are you going to Mekabel Torah? Likewise, the Purim experience also brought the Jewish people to the level Kishucha B'Levacha, like a single person with a single heart, unifying Klal Yisrael. And as a result of that, we could finally Mekabel Torah Shval Peh mi'ava, with love, because we were objected at that point in time, and you could have a Shrosh Shechina as well. But the Megillah says, just like by Har Sinai, it was a temporary reality. It wasn't really, again, it was imposed from outside. Haman represents the imposition of unity from the outside. The Holocaust unified the Jewish people. It was the great equalizer for 6 million Jews. Took everything away that made us different from one another. All the things that made us dislike one another, not be able to get along with each other. The Holocaust was able to change that because everybody wore the same pajamas, had the same life. Even the external religious features were taken away as well. All the differences were taken away. This is what the Garak refers to as Hishtavut, which is an equality that has to happen in advance of Mashiach's arrival. But again, it was imposed from outside. We haven't done it on our own yet. And likewise, Haman also imposed from outside. That's what Amalek does. The Gemara refers to it as a Ritzul Bisha, a punishing belt in the hand of Hashem, to stimulate this, to bring it about, to bring about the Achdus. But because it's stimulated from the outside, it's not earned on our own, the Megillah ends up by saying, because it's a very peculiar thing, why should do that Mordechai was only Merusal of Rovechav, to the majority of his brothers. What do you mean to the majority? I mean, everybody should have been worshiping the ground that he walked on. He just engineered the redemption, the Purim redemption, when nobody even saw what was going on. Not even Esther saw what was going on or was prepared to make the Mesiras Nefesh necessary. And he did all of that. He put himself in the line. Everybody should have been, he should have been Merutza L'Kol B'nai Israel. But he wasn't, because the Achdus got lost along the way. And that's why not everybody came back. As the Zohar says, as a result of the upper well springs of Chachma closed up, which had opened up for the sake of bringing about the Gula Shlema. And it was supposed to be, the Yechiches was Beis Hamikdash, should have been the last Beis Hamikdash, the final Beis Hamikdash, that all fell apart because of the lack of Achdus. We lost the Kishucha B'Levacha. But that's what the 20 represents. So that's why it's tied to the story of Yosef and his brothers. If you forget that, go back to last week's video, right? But it was tied to Yosef and his brothers because the 20 Amas, that intellectual blindness, is intrinsic to Shem. So the Shem itself has the Shin and the Mem, which spells Shem, but the Chuf breaks it up by dividing the name of a Kosh Baruch Hu, just like Amalek does. Mishkan rectifies, as we'll see. And how does it do it? By adding the Nun. By adding the Nun, so that takes out the Chuf between the Shin and the Mem. Good to have a whiteboard over here. And then after that, you're left with the Shin and the Mem are together finally. The Chuf is outside, the Nun's there, you have Mishkan, and you have Yichud, you have Achdus, and Hashrash Shechina. So that's what has to happen. So
you also have Chen on the end.
No, because that's with a Ches. This is a Chaf.
Oh, okay.
That would be nice.
That would be.
That would be very nice. Yeah, but phonetically it's true, but not.
Steve brought something out last week. Remember when he mentioned?
Yeah. Did you find the source for that?
The gallows.
Yeah.
Remember the 50 were high.
You had homework.
Were high.
You had homework.
And you're talking about Nun here. The Nun here at the end of Mishnah.
No, we'll get to that. That's all part of it. That's not coincidental. That's specifically the way it's supposed to be.
Because 50 is way beyond the height.
Yeah, well,
Can't
50.
see it. You can't see it, right?
Well, that's 20. That's the 20 represents that.
Certainly. 50.
But the 50 represents actually the vision itself. It's the Nun Shari Bina. Anyhow, so that's what he said. That's the Chuf. Okay, that's why. So that's why Yaakov Avinu, right? That's why he left out the extra letter, because he saw that the Chuf still affected the Jewish people, affected his sons. They had this lack of of clarity about Hashgacha Pratis. The Chof is what Amalek promotes. That's what he's trying to make a reality amongst us. And therefore, the curtain of the Ohel Moed, right, that the actual tent that went around the Mishkan, which is where everything's supposed to be fixed up, was actually the actual opening, the veil, was 20 amas wide. Because it represents that blindness. Because the world beyond the Ohel was the everyday world in which we live in of Hester Panim. Right? You've got the tent of meeting, the Mishkan's inside. Right? So the opening of the tent of meeting itself, the Ohel Moed, is 20 amas wide, because it blocked the vision of what was going on inside the Ohel, which is where all the miracles were taking place. That's where the Hashgacha takes place. Right? So 50, we said, represents, so taking the Mishkan, right? So when you get past that entranceway of 20 amas wide, you get to Chatzah, which is Nun by Nun, 50 by 50. The halachas of Erev are based upon the Chatzah itself, in terms of the area of society, which is what has to constitutes a a specific dimension with respect to the halachas of Erevin, and the reason for the 50 was because that represents already the information, the knowledge, the das elokim necessary to break through the chof. Right, to get past the chof, you have to access the 50, the nun shari bina. That's what Torah is, the whole point of Torah, but it's not automatic. You can still learn Torah and still not get the message, because Torah has to be learned on different levels. As the Rizal points out, that's what Pshat, Remes, Drush, and Soda is all about. Many people learn Torah and they're still blind to Hashgacha Pratis. The Jewish people, Tamei Chachamim, we see today, for example, how many people just don't recognize what's going on and speak about it. Prepare the Jewish people what's coming up. It's like we're living almost like a dichotomy over here, where on one hand we're going about our business like everything is perfectly fine, yet the world beyond is actually much more serious. The threat is very, very serious at this point in time, to the extent that a certain gadol, mentioned in New York about a week ago. He called a special meeting to wake up his community to say, "What's going on? We're not taking this Iran threat serious enough." And that he's just one person, but everybody should be talking about that. The Jewish people, with our history, our long history of suffering through a galus, and every time we go through the stages of what's going on right now, it always ends up getting much worse before it gets better. So the bells should be going off amongst Klal Yisrael, major bells. And not just that, but not just in Eretz Yisrael, all around the world, because we are one nation. And basically, when it affects one part of the Jewish people, it will affect another part of the Jewish people, because it's a function of Hashgacha Pratis. That's the bottom line. We suffer from the same problem over here. Why is everybody concerned about the Jews of Eretz Yisrael and not the Jews of America? Because they're looking at this thing totally from Asa's point of view. They're looking at a total tevadik, non-hashkachadik type of thing. This is not really God doing it. This is history running its course. Iran became... Okay, some are gods behind the entire thing. But it's not like hashkacha pratis, meaning that it's much more serious a threat over here because we're next door. We're within striking reach of Iran. So we have to worry, right? People are 6,000 miles away. What have they worry for? Iran's not going to nuke America, right? Terrorists won't fly planes to the side of buildings in America. That's 6,000 miles away. They won't kill thousands of people and bring down two of the most important symbols of American culture, with 103 minutes, because that's just too far away. It's like, it didn't happen in Israel, that thing. It happened up in New York, downtown New York, and froze the country, and flights came, what was that? Well, whatever it was, conspiracy, not conspiracy, the bottom line was Hashgacha Pratis. Because Baruch Hu's way of telling us that don't think physical distance is going to save you. If this is from me, if I'm bringing this because the exile is coming to an end, if I'm engineering all of this to get you guys to wake up like I did back in Purim time and in the Midbar with Amalek, if it's me doing all of this, then what do I care if you're 6,000 miles away? God's going to say all of a sudden, gee, I wanted to get those Jews of New York, but they're so far away, and it's such so expensive to send people all the way over there, and the details and all, the technical aspects of being, let's just forget about them. Let's focus here in Eretz Yisrael, where it's much closer to the conflict. Then you don't understand God, and you don't understand Hashgacha Pratis. The same way that Yosef's brothers thought that Gehenna is going to freeze over before God is going to choose someone like Yosef to lead the Jewish people. Gehenna did not freeze over, and he did choose Yosef to lead the Jewish people. So somehow we're not getting the message. Somehow we're not getting it right. That's the chuf. The nun is supposed to break through all of that. The nun is supposed to open us up. So therefore,
Why is it the chaf?
the
20.
The 20, yeah. So the nun,
Spiritual violence, right?
the nun is supposed to fix all that up. Mitzrayim is Meitzuyam because basically it was a place that denies the Shkach. Any place that denies the reality of God's hand in history is by definition a Mitzrayim. Not necessarily in Egypt. Egypt is over, to the south over here, right? But Mitzrayim can be anywhere in the world. Mitzrayim is a conceptual reality, constricts the nun shari bina. So therefore, you got to you walk into the Chatzar of the Olam Moed, right? And you hit an area 50 by 50 because this is already the education to get past the Chuf, right? So that's why we said before that the Nun added to Shechem transforms it into Mishkan, which is now the exact opposite of Shechem. Shechem is a Makkah Muchan Lepuyanot, a place that's set aside for punishment because there, everything is happening behind the scenes. Mishkan is just the opposite. It's actually the refuah for what happens by Shechem. 50 is the power to unify the Jewish people, to bring them to the level of Kishuch B'Lev Echad, where the Shechinah can dwell amongst us, right? So that's why Amalek, that's Haman and Amalek together, right? Amalek attacked the stragglers to separate them and divide the nation. Also, Haman attacked the Jewish people, the unity of the Jewish people, by pointing out that there's this people who will not integrate. The whole Mishnah that happens at the beginning of the Megillah is just to cause the Jewish people to divide. Because it was a lightning rod, so to speak. It was a way of drawing out those. They knew Mordechai would want to go. They knew Mordechai would speak against things. There's a few Mordechais, that would not want to come, but there are people who would go just to fit in, and because it was the place to go and to be a part of this event. So the whole thing happened to cause a hafrada amongst the Jewish people, a separation to allow, because the whole thing is about the Shekhinah. The whole thing is surrounding, encompasses this idea of the 70 years, whether or not God is going to redeem the Jewish people and reestablish the relationship. And this is a very holy war taking place over here. Achashverosh, and all the other ones before him, and Nebuchadnezzar, they all were wondering. They believed in God. They believed in the Jewish people as being the people of God. They believed in that. So therefore, the whole thing was waiting to find out whether or not that God would keep His promise and recover them once again after 70 years. It wasn't like we don't buy into this. They were all holding their breath and making the calculations when the 70 years were going to be over. And Achashverosh put on the big kahuna to make the point specifically to say that no longer are you meshubah to Kodesh Baruch Hu, to God, because he walked out on you because you guys blew it, and now you meshubah to me. That was his point by putting on the clothing of the, because why else take such a risk in doing things like that? that was the whole point of the conflict. So
I'm missing the 50. Why the 50? Where's the 50 come into this? How is the 50?
This is all against the 50. This is all Haman coming to promote just the opposite, the Chov. It's the battles between the 20 and the 50 over here in a sense. Haman represents the 20, Amalek represents the 20, and the 50, and that's why, what's Haman?
What is 50? What is 50?
It's the Nun Shari Bina. The 50 gates of understanding, which is a sheer into itself, but it represents, in general terms, the knowledge that we need to be able to see the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to elevate ourselves out of the mundane reality to achieve the unity necessary to become a Mishkan for the Shekhinah.
So in other words, by us internalizing the 50,
yes,
that is essentially the antidote to the Torah.
That could have said it better myself. Exactly. So that's what's the name Haman mean? Haim Nun. Right? They are the 50. The Jewish people themselves represent the Nun Shari Bina. He comes basically, whether he knows it or not, he comes specifically to bring that out in us, to make us realize this is what's missing in our life, and to pursue it, just to be able to survive. So that's why, right, if you look at the word Shechina, right, what is the word Shechina? The word Shechina itself is Shena, which means sleep, with a chuf. Take the chuf out, and the word itself becomes Shena. Right now, happens to be that when Achashverosh turns to Haman, he says to him, how can we do this? Everybody else who's tried to take on the Jewish people has always lost. Right? So what's Haman's answer back to Achashverosh? Their God is sleeping. Their God is sleeping. In Kabbalah, the actual term is Dormita. Right? The technical term is called Dormita. It's a sleeping, right? What do you mean their God is sleeping? So Haman he's saying that because of the way that they're dealing with the Shkacha Pratis, it's Ki'il, the Chof is taken out of the Shechina, all that's left is the Shemos, so to speak, Meaning that the Kosh Baruch himself is sleeping, so therefore we can do whatever we want to them, right? So that's the and also the word Anochi Kosh Baruch Anochi Shem Elokecha. The actual word Anochi itself is Ani Chof, right? You take the Kosh Baruch Hu doesn't just say Ani Hashem Elokecha. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Anochi is made from the word Ani with the Chof. Kosh Baruch Hu is telling us through the Anochi that he, in fact, is the Chof himself. You understand the deeper meaning of Esther Panim and how Hashem works, even during times when things are hidden, is still a Kosh Baruch Hu. That's the deepest level of Hashgacha Pratis. When you can look at the Holocaust, there's a famous story. I don't want to go off course too much here, but there's a famous story where somebody during the Warsaw Ghetto, who was, I don't know if he came from family at one point in time, but he certainly was not religious in the ghetto, and he was fighting as part of the resistance just because he was part of the Jewish people. He was one of the final people to be taken, and the ghetto finally collapsed. And apparently they found the bottle, and inside the bottle was like a note that he left behind it, but he was describing the final days of the attack by the Germans, and he started to get very philosophical, and he began to say why would the Germans, what do they need this for? Why would they go their way to spend all this money and energy to attack our people that what? What were we trying to do? Take over the government? We didn't pay our taxes. We did everything right. We're the model citizens more than the people of the country themselves who were born there. Right? We do everything right. We don't have any aspirations to take over the world and to fight the government. If anything, we support the government, if not out of fear, so out of cooperation. Why is this happening? Why are we being picked on like we're the worst enemy in the world? There's lots of worst enemies in the world. This Jew who's caught in the Warsaw Ghetto.
Oh,
he's starting to look at the whole situation and see how ludicrous the Holocaust was. His final entry, he does it in a few days. His final entry was that there's only one explanation for all this. It must be divine providence. And his last entry is Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. He came to tshuva, to the ridiculousness of the whole thing. It proved that the Kosh Baruch Hu, the hand of Hashem. He saw how even in the Holocaust itself should have happened. The uprising of the attack on the Warsaw Ghetto, it should have happened. So who was behind it? It must be Hashem. For whatever reason, we lost the chance to do it the nice way, the right way. So it happened in the negative way because we denied Hashgacha Pratis. So therefore, Anochi reminds us at all times that even the Chof, even the Hamans, even whatever's going on historically, which is what Purim is telling us, right? Because Purim is there's no difference between Baruch Mordechai and our Haman to tell you because Baruch Hu runs the whole show. Haman works for Hashem and Mordechai works for Hashem. It's just one puppeteer with two puppets. You can't see the puppeteer because it's behind this, below the stage. But the two puppets are there. If you look behind, you can see the puppeteer.
Was this guy who asked this question in the Warsaw Ghetto, was he religious? Wasn't.
That's the whole point. The point that he wasn't. He didn't believe in any of this stuff. It's only because of what he went through, he became a believer in the end.
See, I'll give you a film that we saw last week. It was called Judeophile. And it was made by a woman that's about anti-Semitism and how it is going on in the world today. I'll give you the film.
I saw it advertised.
I'll give you a seat.
Okay.
But I want to read. What's his name comes on the film? Alan Dershowitz. Very, very bright guy, very logical guy, and he comes up with an incredible argument. Okay, incredible argument. What does he say? He says he doesn't understand it. He says Israel is so much like Europe. Everything like Europe. They're democratic. All of it goes on and on.
Even our laws, even our laws and traffic signs, it's all European oriented.
What's that?
Even our laws and traffic signs are all based upon European.
So he says we're so similar to Europe, and he says the Arabs have no similarity to Europe at all.
Yeah.
If anything, Europeans should be on the side of Israel,
right.
Rather than on the side. He says it just doesn't understand. So what's happening is you have this whole film is filled with intellectuals. I mean, very brilliant minds.
They can't understand what's going on.
No, they see, they're telling you exactly what anti-Semitism is and how to identify it. But the only thing that they're not doing is exactly what you're saying here. They're not saying it as Hashgacha Pratis.
Exactly.
They haven't made that leap.
Yeah.
Okay? So the fact remains but they're seeing more of what's going on than most of the religious leaders.
100%. Yeah.
That's the irony of the whole thing. Yeah.
Because if you stand back and look at the big picture, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And the fact it doesn't make sense, we come back to the rule, Me'es Hashem Haisa Zos, He Nidus Beinenu. That which does not make sense to us, that which stands out, is like it shouldn't be, has to be overt Hashgacha Pratis. That's what Anochi means. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. right? I am the chof, ani chof, right? I'm the one who makes it all happen. The stuff that you could clearly see, it's me. And the stuff, I was the one who made Paro do all that stuff to you to get you going, and then came back and did the place, the Paro in the end. It's all me. It's all me. And as long as you agree with that, I won't have to go this distance. I won't have to go down this path. But the moment you start investing your belief and your emunah into false source of power, so then I have to start working behind the scenes and doing things until you finally wake up and realize who's boss around here.
But religious people also, they have this cloud.
100%. That's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. The fact that you learn Torah is not a guarantee that you're going to see the big picture. My Rosh Hashanah used to always tell us there's 4 levels to learn Torah. The first one is like what's being said, what's shot over here. What's the simple understanding of the words, right? And then basically, how do you understand it? How do you interpret, what's being said, right? And the third one is like what do the Meforshim say? I know Rashi, Tosfos, and Rishonim, Achronim. What do they say, right? Actually, that was the second one. The third one is what's the difference between you and them? Why did they say that and you didn't say that? What's your perspective differently? The last one was perhaps the most important one of all. What does this teach you about life? What is this Gemara, no matter how technical, what does it teach you about life? One of the most fantastic things was, I learned the Gemara maybe 10, 15 times. I talk about Kalim, about whether or not, chayav for destroying people's Kalim, make a pit, they fall into the pit, the cow falls into the pit on top of the Kalim. Can you be chayav for that? So the Pasuk is talking about killing something, about breaking something. So Gemara comes back and says, well, when Kalim break, that's their misa. That's called their death. You fall on top of the plates, they break, that's also called their misa in a sense, right? So I saw the Gemara, like how many times I saw this Gemara over and over again, basically, until when do you learn Kabbalah? It turns out you find out that Shirsa Kalim is also called Misas and Malachim, right? The death of the kings, because that's the beginning of all of my separations. And right, there's one Gemara. People forget the same people who wrote this Gemara, who gave over all these Maimer Chazal, were the biggest Mukubim we've known in the last 2,000 years. Rabbi Akiva, Rishon Bar Yochai, these people, when they spoke Gemara, they had Kabbalah in the back of their mind, the front of their mind, that's the way they perceive reality. We learn it like we're reading, a text. A text. It's a cheder text, basically. Yeshiva Katana, whatever. This is the book. Is a chumash. And they're trying to transmit messages to us to give us the big picture. The whole point of the Gemara is to break through the chuf, and we use it to enlarge the chuf in the end because we don't go the extra distance. Right? We don't go the final distance. So that's what Anochi means. So after the 50 amos of the Chatzar in the Mishkan, in the Ohel, right, you get to the Heichel. That's when the Mishkan begins. 20 is the veil in front of the Mishkan. The Chatzar is 50 by 50. Now you get to the actual Mishkan itself, which was 30 by 10 amos wide.
What's the size of the Mishkan?
It's 10 amos wide and 30 amos deep. 20 amos deep for the Heichel, right? And then 10 by 10 was the Kodesh Kodeshim, the Holy of Holies, right? No, that's okay. But thank you. But that's the way it was set up. So now we have a problem because we're finished. We just finished talking about the fact that 20 blinds you to Hashgacha Pratis, and now the Heichel, which is where the place where the menorah and the Ketoris was situated, right? And also the Shochan, which is the Lechem Panim, right? All these fantastic, miraculous things taking place, and these are now the menorah is Chachma, the Ketoris is wealth, and the Ketoris is Das, and the Shochan, the Lechem Panim is wealth, right? These are this is an extremely revealing place of Hashgacha Pratis, but it's 20 amos deep. We're back to the 20 once again. So it turns out that the 20 before the 50 is different than 20 after the 50. And a very simple mashal that to use to make the point. Someone said, you say to somebody, and this happened when I was in yeshiva very often doing kiruv with people. Basically, you talk to a person, you convince them it's worth learning Torah. The guy's on his way to university, to college, right? And you're struggling with the guy. Some people stay, a lot of people stay, but a lot of people go back. And I remember a few people would say, when I finish my degree, I'm going to go back. I'll learn. I'll go to yeshiva then, but I can't go now. I'm supposed to go in this year. My parents are waiting me to go this year. I can't go right now. Right? What are the odds that person will go through college and come back and go to yeshiva after? Very, very slim. If anything, he goes to college, and college is a makam of kfira. The amount of heresy in terms of God and religion, things like that, on college campuses is unbelievable. He's going to be exposed to all kinds of scientists and physicists and astronomers and philosophers who are going to try to convince him there's no such thing as God or Shkacha Pratis or Torah from Sinai. And he's going to come back and he's going to say, well, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? It was in yeshiva. It made so much sense, but I was so naive. These people are so brilliant. So how can that be, right? So everything he learns, he becomes a doctor, a physician. The information he sees, the miraculous information he sees, will just make him, it's just technical. It's all technical. He won't become frum. He won't become religious one day. When a guy says, okay, I tell you what, I will spend a year, 2 years in yeshiva, I'll push up my college, which I can do because I can get the deferral, and then I'll go to college after that. And he stays for a year or two, and he becomes committed. He learns Torah. He becomes aware of the deep understanding of Hashgacha Pratis. He understands the miracle of light, and now he goes back to learning in college. Everything he learns will strengthen his belief in Hashem, because he has the Eitz Chaim. He ate in the Eitz Chaim first. He has the basis for understanding how things work in the world. So now the medical knowledge will become an even bigger miracle. Astronomy just proves how phenomenal, because he'll see things in astronomy, in physics classes that will just reveal the inner, deeper workings of Hashem within Ma'aseh Bereshis, how technically it is. Wow, it's amazing how much God invested in creation. That's the difference between the Chof before the 50 or after. The Chof before the 50 is the Eitzes Tov Ra, before the Tzachayim. That knowledge will blind you to the reality of Kodesh Baruch Hu. But if you get the Eitzes Chayim first, and then you go back and eat from the Eitzes Tov Ra, which is what Adam was supposed to have done in the first place, the knowledge will not only not blind you, it will enhance your vision of a Kodesh Baruch Hu in Ma'aseh Bereshis. So therefore, after the 50, you come back to the 20, but here's a 20 that takes place after the 50. So this 20 is now on a higher level than even the 50 itself is at this point in time. And combined, the 50 plus the 20 adds up to 70, which brings you to where? The parochas and the opening of the Kodesh Kodeshim. Right? That's where you're supposed to be. And the Kodesh Kodeshim is the place where the Hashgacha Pratis is incredible, because there the Gemara says the Arna Kodesh took up more space and was physically allotted to it. It was Lamala Minateva. And that's exactly what Purim was supposed to have been. That's why the whole thing by Purim was the 70 years, corresponding to the 70 Amos. Because the point of the 70 years was to get the Jewish people past the 20, past the 50, to the point of the Arna Kodesh, right? Where you rise above the everyday mundane reality to the point that you can see Kodesh Baruch Hu in every aspect of Ma'aseh Bereshis, and in doing so, you merit to rise to the level of Chinid Mendoza, the miracle workers, the people who could transform the physical world at will because they were not bound by it. The Jewish people are not supposed to be bound by the physical world. We're supposed to be Lamala Minateva. If you live like Esav, you will die like Esav. You'll still be Lamala Minateva, right? But you'll be more affected by the everyday mundane reality, because Baruch Hu will perform miraculous Hashgacha Pratis on you, not you necessarily personally, but on a Jew, basically, to make it look like you're living like Esav. Understand the twist over here?
Yeah,
right?
I'm a little lost.
Yeah.
Please. First of all, what were the dimensions of the Mishkan?
The actual Mishkan itself, or the whole?
Yeah, no, Mishkan, just the Mishkan.
The Heichel was 10 amas wide and 20 amas deep.
I'm not talking about the Heichel, I'm talking about Mishkan.
That's the Mishkan. But the Mishkan was that's the Heichel is the first part, and the Kodesh Kodeshim was the second part. It's all one building.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. Wasn't it 50 by 100?
No, that's the Ohel.
That's what I'm talking about. The Ohel. Yeah.
They're two different things.
What? What do you mean?
The Ohel and the Mishkan are two different things. The Mishkan is the building inside the Ohel. The Ohel was the encampment around the fence around the entire thing.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. So 50 by 100 was the Ohel, right?
Yeah.
Now where was the how from? Where,
So
how
50.
big was,
So 50 amas from the opening of the Ohel.
50 amas from the opening of the Ohel. That's halfway in, right?
Yes, yeah.
Halfway in, right? Okay.
Begins the opening to the Heichel.
Okay.
That goes
20. That was 20 amas
20.
wide.
No,
Okay.
deep. It's all 10 amas wide.
It's all 10 amas.
The Mishkan is 10 amas wide, right?
Oh, the Mishkan is 10 amas wide.
Yes.
Oh, so it's 100 by 10.
No, it's 30 by 10. Here.
Could you turn off the
Yeah. Actually, if you look at the Redemption book, Redemption book, there's actually a thing there. But anyhow, in the meantime, you have this. This is.
We need a blackboard.
Yeah. So this is the Ohel, right?
Right.
Around the whole thing. It's 50 by 50. This is the Chatzar, okay?
So this is 100, isn't it?
Yeah,
From there to
yeah,
there. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
This front part is 50 by 50,
Yeah.
right? Then you begins the Heichel, which is 10 amas wide, right? I mean, and then
Are you talking about the base of Mikdash or the
Mishkan?
the Mishkan?
Yeah.
So inside of it now was the. This is what you're calling the Mishkan.
That's called the Mishkan.
Okay, so now you're saying the Mishkan inside of this building was.
This is actually a tent. This is like curtains all around.
Gotcha. Okay.
And this is the building.
Okay.
Right. This is 20 amas deep.
Right.
And you have the Kodesh Kodeshim, which is 10 by 10.
Okay. So this is 10. This is 10, and this is 10. Right?
Yeah.
What's this over here?
That's just a line I just drew to show the distance.
Okay. So this is 10 by 10, right?
Right. Yeah.
So what's this here?
That's also just a line I drew for the distance. Yeah.
So this is 30 deep,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So 20 into it here is where is Kodesh Kadoshim.
Exactly.
And this is what you're calling the Heichel here
Exactly.
now? Okay. So this is where the menorah was,
Exactly.
and the
Yeah.
shulchan,
Exactly.
and the Ketores.
Exactly.
So, and this is where the Aaron was. Okay. All right. So what are you saying that the 50? I'm trying to figure this out.
No, so the 50, right? The 50.
Yeah.
Right. Here's the masach. Right. Here's the 20.
Right.
Oh, that's the masach over here. That's the opening.
Okay.
Okay. Then you traverse 50 amos here
To get to the Heichel.
to get to the heichel.
Gotcha.
Right. Then you're confronted by another 20
Okay.
over here. Right. But this time the 20 is after the 50.
Uh-huh.
So combined, the 50, 20, you get to 70, which brings you to the parochas.
Okay.
Right, and in this area, which is where the Aron Kodesh was situated, that was Lamal Teva. Right, so the 70 represents rising above the physical reality. So this is the outside everyday world of Hester Panim. This is where the camp was. The people were camped. Right. You go into here. The Mizbeach is like this over here. That's the Mizbeach inside here. Here you have the menorah, the shulchan, and the ketoris. It's the menorah, the shulchan, and the ketoris over here. Then you have the Aron Kodesh, which the poles were like, facing out like this. Right.
What's the distance between the end of the Aron Kodesh until the end of the Heichal?
Between here and here?
Yeah.
So I believe it's another. I think it's another 20.
So it's 20, 50, 20 is 90.
Yeah. Well, here basically it stops because this is where the Kodesh Kodeshim is. You already leave the reality of everyday life here. Like this 20 doesn't make a difference because the whole point is to get to this point. Right, that was just more of a technical reality. It could be. It could be.
What's the inner dimension, though? If from walking inside until go to the end, that would be like 110 or something?
Here?
Yeah, from the beginning.
No, 100. It's like 100 amos, I believe. 100. Well, here is 100 amos.
It is?
Yeah, yeah.
But I thought it actually took up more space than...
No, this here is 10 by 10 amos.
Okay.
And that took up more space. The actual Aron Kodesh took up more space than was physically allotted to it. So it represents the Malam Teva completely.
Couldn't fit. Wasn't supposed to fit.
Right. So that's the basic idea of that, right?
So when you're saying the 50 before, you're making a point that going through, you're saying that the amount of before is more critical than the amount after. I wasn't following.
No, the other way around. The 20 in advance of the 50 is like going.
The 20 now from walking inside the
No,
Heichel,
the 20 itself at this point is only the opening itself. The opening is 20 amas wide.
that's the curtain.
The veil, the curtain is 20 amas wide. That's the first 20 right there.
Okay.
Right, that represents not being able to see inside where all the miracles are taking place. Right,
Okay.
the Ohel Moed was the place that's attentive meeting. It's the place where man and God come together, in a relationship, and it just gets more and more intense as you go further and deeper into the structure.
Okay.
Right. So the masach represents that veil. It's the menorah 20 amas high. It's the schach 20 amas high. It's the area 20 amas high because you can't see what's going on. You can't see the hand of Hashem. You go into the chatz, you get the 50 by 50 because it loses the nun shor bina. So now you're getting fed information because there's the mizbeach where the smoke always rises straight up, and you're reminded of the ongoing relationship. All the miracles that take place, as mentioned in Pirkei Avos, that took place in the chatzar itself. That no flies were there. In other words, it was a place where you could clearly see, life was lamal teva, but not completely yet. Then you got to the heichel; it's a level of kodesh already.
All right, but the mizbeach was you had the curtain, okay? That's the 20,
Right.
That's 20 wide,
Right.
Then you're walking into the area of the Mizbeach.
Right, exactly.
What's the distance from the 20 until the Heichel? That's where the Mizbeach is.
That's a 50. It's 50.
That's 50.
That's 50.
That's 50, but you're saying it's 50 by 50? Is
Yes,
that what you're
50
saying?
by 50.
So it encompasses that one all the way to the walls of the...
Yeah, the entire area in front of the Mishkan. The entire area.
Okay, now you walk 50, and you get to the actual Heichel itself.
Exactly.
And that's now...
20 deep.
That's 20 deep.
Right.
That's 20 deep. And how wide is it?
10.
10. Okay, 20. Now, is there another curtain there?
At the Paroch itself, it's a curtain.
In other words, I'm saying after that 50 area where the Mizbeach is.
Oh, meaning over the Heichel?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a curtain over the Heichel too.
So, and how wide was that? That was 10 also. That was a 10 wide.
No, it had to be less. Was it the whole distance? I think it was. It was a whole distance, less the width of the Krushim, I think.
Okay, so it was almost 10 wide, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so essentially that's also an area that's Hesed.
Yeah, but here that's because it's no Zar can enter. Only a Kohen can enter that point in time into the Heichel.
You can go into the Mizbeach.
We could go into the earth in Mizbeach,
Right.
yeah. We couldn't go into the Heichel. Only a Kohen could go to the Heichel. Only the Kohen Gadol could go into the Kodesh Kodashim.
Okay.
Right. So we're going up levels of kedusha, and therefore levels of Gilui Panim, of revelation of Kodesh Baruch Hu. Now this corresponds, of course, to Yud Kei Vav Kei. Right. This whole setup, the Masach itself, the outside area, right. Right. The outside area. The world outside, which corresponds basically to the Malchus. The Malchus is a place where there's Hester Panim, right? This corresponds to the first head. This whole area here.
You're talking about the entire area.
The whole outside world. The whole world beyond this curtain around. It's Malchus, right?
That's
it's
the area that we have impact on,
exactly.
Right?
And that's the world we live within. That's our world. That's what we're trying to the Makadish and bring the Shechina into that world. This area over here of 50 by 50 corresponds to the Vav. Right, because it's a connecting piece, just like Yosef itself is the level of Nun Shari Bina, the Yesod, the whole concept of Yesod is the idea of Yud Sod, where the Yud Chachma comes down into the world through the Yesod itself. We spoke about a few weeks ago about how Yesod connects up the upper 8 spheres with the Malchus itself, in order to bring the Shefa down for all the miracles to take place. But this corresponds to the Vav. The Vav, that's why there's Vavim all around the entire Heichel, holding up the curtains, because Vav is the connector. It's the Das. Right, Das is called the Koich Chibur. Das is what you need to connect up man with Hashem. It unifies things. It's a source of unification. Das Elokim. So and that's why Vav. If you take the letter Vav and you add to Baruch Shem Kavod Machved, it becomes 25 plus 25, which is the 50. Right, combined together, it becomes 50 as opposed to 49. The Kohen Gadol wore 25 letters and 25 letters, and he was the connecting piece between to unify them. Right, the Kohen is Chof Hey and Nun, 25. Of the Shema, the 25 of the Ganuz, the Nun of the Nun Shari Bina. It's all built in beautifully. The whole, the message is clearly there. And on top of that, you take a Vav and you add it to a past tense word, and you transform the word into a future tense word, right? So that way, you see the Vav itself is able to, it rises above time. It's above time. So therefore, it's very much tied to Purim, because Purim is about going above the level of Haman and Amalek, who tries to pull us down. The stragglers he attacks are the people who are dangling in the world of Amalek, dangling in the everyday world, who are not living L'Malam Teva as we're supposed to. That makes us vulnerable. It's the people who who are off the father's shoulders where the dog can bite. Those are the stragglers. We're all stragglers. We're all on that level to some degree at some point in time, if not a lot of the time. So the Vav represents going above that reality and becoming more supernatural. The Heichel, right, corresponds to the first Hey of Yud Kei Vav Kei, corresponds to the Bina.
Which now? What's that now?
This is the Vav, this area, and the Heichel itself corresponds to the first Hey, right? And therefore the Kodesh Kodashim, which makes it Kodesh 10 by 10, corresponds to the Yud. What else could you ask for? The Gematria of Yud is 10, right? And the Yud represents the Chachma and also the Keser as well, because in Safrus, right, a Yud looks like this. Since we have a piece of paper, right? In Safrus,
the Kodesh is Hay. The Kodesh area is Hay.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And
So,
why is it Hay?
because it's already it's the next os up. It's the next level of Kudush up, right? You've Yud Kei Vav Kei, so you're going up letter by letter, so it becomes the Hey, right? And here, for example, this is a Yud, right? In Safrus,
So
you
the
have both parts.
the outside Yud is Malchus. Is that what you're saying? Is that where's Yud Kei Vav Kei?
No, so the Yud is the Kodesh Kodashim.
So so Yud.
Yud Kei
Hashem's name.
Vav Kei.
I
Yud
see.
Kei
What's that
Vav Kei.
I see. So the hay outside
there's a malchus.
Is malchus.
And the first hay is always bina. Corresponds to bina, right?
So her first hay, which is the kodesh.
Yes, yeah. And that's the way. So that's exactly how the name works. It's exactly how the spheres work. And so therefore, the whole progression. This represents the progression of a Jew personally and nationally, and what Amalek comes to be mafri, because he comes to be mafri between Yud-K and Vav-K, as Rashi points out. The kisei can't be complete until he's eliminated, right? Which means he tries to cut this world off from this world. This world is the supernatural world, and this is the world basically shaykh to us. He tries to make a separation in them, so that's what we said was so important. You mentioned.
That's what you meant by the 14, right?
Yeah, right.
That's the 14 area?
Well, the 14...
It's analogous to it.
Basically, yeah. I want to go there at the second in a moment in time, but it's 100% tied exactly to that. And that's why it was so important for Haman, as you mentioned last week, to use wood from Noach's Teva, to build the eights 50 amas high against Mordechai. Because the whole point of Noach's Teva was the fact that the Yud-K, 15 amas going up, and the Vav-K going down. This is the Vav-K, this is the Yud-K, right? So he was trying to incorporate in his attack on the Jewish people the koyach of being mafried, of like Amalek, of the Yud-K and Vav-K, because if he can do that, he can also cause the Jewish people to stop being unified, and therefore there's no Hashrosh Shechina, there's no redemption at the end of 70 years, right? And there's the Yahal Shlita, that's the end of the Jewish people, and the end of Hashgacha Pratis, and evil can prosper all it wants to, right? So that's why the Gemara asks the question: Where's Mordechai also? But where's Mordechai mentioned in the Torah? Was alluded to that brings in the verse about Mar Dror, right? The incense, the Ketoris, which corresponds to Das, which is the Nun Shar Bina, alludes to Mordechai. How much of Mar Dror did we use in the Ketoris? 70 manas, the only one, because that's who Mordechai was. He was the Das. He was the conduit for the Nun Shari Bina. He made himself into that. That's what we're all supposed to be. Every single Jew is supposed to be a conduit for the Nun Shari Bina. That's what we're all struggling to become. And when we do that, we not only rise above the physical everyday reality, and miracles can happen all the time for us, but we become invincible. That's what keeps the enemy away from us. When Rashi brings down the mashal about the son on the father's shoulders, right? And the son says, pick up that. And eventually he says he forgets his father is below him. And he says to the passerby, have you seen my father? And the father says, what? You forgot you're sitting on my shoulders? Go down on the ground, and you'll find out where your father was the entire time. And the dog comes along and he bites him. So the question is, it's stretching the mashal a little bit far, but it's valid. The question is, where was the dog until that time? The dog is Amalek, right? Where was the dog until that time? If you're walking on your father's shoulder and the dog is circling the entire time, you forget where you are? You forget who's holding you up at that point in time? Amalek wasn't even the picture. We created Amalek. The gematria of Amalek is 70. Haman has what's the word, mercurial, rise to power, from Mumuchan, from who's a barber at one point in time, cutting people's hair, becomes second in command, over Persia, this mighty, huge country that has the power to destroy the Jewish people, God forbid. Where does that come from? That's all the result of the Jewish people failing to function in the role of Nun Shari Bina. We had more time to tie it back to the man itself, because Haman is the Haman, right? The man. And the last time we got attacked was after the episode of the man, back in Parshat B'Shalach, because Dasim Aviram were collecting man on Shabbos. And we mentioned, if you remember the whole thing, that the fact that there was supposed to pick up one omer of man as opposed to 2 omers of man. Moshe did not teach them the halacha properly in time. They picked up 2 omers of man. The second one didn't rot, which is a much lesser miracle than picking up 1 omer of man and saying, L'chavet Shabbos Kodesh, and watching the 1 omer become 2. Right? That is the koyach of Klal Yisrael. That's the koyach of Nun Shari Bina, to allow a person to rise above the everyday physical reality. So the Mishkan, the whole Shechem, the whole idea, it's all built in over here. It's the Nun Shar Bina that changes everything. The Nun, the 50 days, bring it to the level of Kisha Chabalevachad. The Nun of Purim, right, the Nun Shar Bina, brings us also back to level of Kisha Chabalevachad. So therefore we can Mekabel Torshval Peh Mi Ahava, because we're now holding the same level we were on Har Sinai. We said Nasav and Nishma. I mean, Nasav, of course, what's Nasav and Nishma? Nun Aseh, Nun Shema. Right? And then there's also tied to it Nun Dar, Neshama is Nun Shama, right? Which is, our Neshamas are made up from the Nun Shari Bina. So ultimately speaking, that's what it means the Malach teaches us Kol Torah Kula, before we're born. We have inside of us already the Nun Shari Bina. We're not creating it anew. We're not drawing it down from scratch into ourselves. We're accessing the Nun Shari Bina that was always inside of Klal Yisrael. So when it says Haman, Haim, Nun, they're the 50, Haman is there to act as a spiritual mirror to reflect to us the Nun Shari Bina inside of us. We are the 50, the Jewish people. Klal Yisrael, we're the Nun Shari Bina. We're the access to, because our neshamas, like the Torah itself, is made from the Or HaGanuz. That's where the light is hidden. Inside of us, inside of Torah, we learn Torah to help surface it from inside of ourselves. And if enough people do that, it becomes like a breaking point. Becomes a, what do you call it? What's it? The term called? Tipping point, right? And then it just spreads the rest of Klal Yisrael, and you can't stop it. And then we can have what's called Hashrash Shechina, the ultimate, sign of success of anybody in this world. When the Shechina can be sure in somebody, there's nothing better, there's nothing higher than that in the end. Yeah.
I just saw two things. One thing was that someone turn this off. One thing I thought of was, said, where did the dog come from? And it's mentioned. Rashi mentions there with Yaakov sending out the Malachim to Esau. So the dog is sleeping. What are you kicking the dog?
Right.
I think there's some kind of connection there.
Well, Kalev is Kalev, like the heart, right? First of all, they're very loyal animals, but basically, it's like, our hearts reflect the outside world. We create our enemies. So, where our heart was holding, that's so. Therefore, like our heart. So now, the Kalev was in response to that.
Well, it could be because Amalek is an offshoot of Esau.
100%. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
From
Eliphaz, great grandson.
Eliphaz. Actually, grandson, I think.
He's a grandson. Grandson. Yeah.
Concubine of Eliphaz was she gave birth to Amalek.
Right.
Grandson of Esau. The thing I was thinking is something really wild. The Shivim Shana of Golos Bavel began with the Churban bias, right? That was the Churban of the bias, and then 70 years. And then they couldn't get the calculation right. They were calculating from the first.
Because no one knew when it actually began. Only retroactively could we figure it out.
We figured out from the Churban of the bias. Right. When was the imposition of the final solution? What year?
1941.
In terms in Jewish year or
no, I think that conference they had.
Wannabe conference in Germany. That's what took place.
I think it was 41 or 42. Sure. I was 42 for some reason.
Well, 42 they began to implement it.
Summer of 41 is when they.
Because I started with a V, I thought.
It's a W. It's one.
Whatever. I think, or
want to see.
Or the countries got together and basically they just handed the reins to them and said, "Do what you want with the Jews." It was supposed to be like a conference to say to the Jews, and they didn't lift a finger.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was 1942. Not what Alan's saying, but it.
Sorry, Chiam.
Huh?
Yeah, it looks like it.
But that's if the Churban started then, we're exactly 70 years past that point right now.
Right. Well, 70. You should know 70 years. If you go through history, you'll find almost every 70 years is a major turning point in Jewish history. Usually, some kind of catastrophe sets it off. The 70 years is always, and you should know also. Apparently, there's a book written years ago that the financial markets are also tied to the 70 years.
There was a Russian economist by the name of Kondratiev who said that these cycles ran 70 years.
Yeah, something like that. But also, someone there's an American who wrote a book also.
Spiritual. What do you call it?
No, this is an American businessman who said he just looked at the thing and he found it. I think in between 70 to 100 years like that, but 70 is a starting point.
He's a rough economist. He probably got it for this guy.
But certainly from our perspective, 70 years is usually represents a turning point in Jewish history because it's supposed to be that way. We're supposed to do it on our own. Now, the important thing over here is the following thing because we have to tie it back to Purim. That's the Mishkan. That's the Achdus.
Just a question.
Yeah.
First of all, you said something about Haman. Something about the Keturahs of Dror, right?
Mar Dror, yeah.
Mar Dror. And just 70? What was
70 manas? That's how much you used of Mar Dror. I forget what it's called in English, but that specifically there was 11. It was 11 because that's the number for das. 11 spices used to make up the incense offering.
11's, yeah, right, 11.
And one of them was the fourth one was marjor, and each one had different amounts.
70 was the amount
Exactly.
that was in this. Okay.
Of marjor.
And you also said that the 50, the height of
Myrrh,
the
yeah,
height,
myrrh, I think myrrh, yeah.
and you said the height of 50 was the way Haman came to break up. In other words,
To counteract.
Cause a Purim.
Yeah.
Could you explain that? I didn't get that. I'm not sure.
Every concept can be used for kedusha for tumah.
Right.
So Haman was trying to access. He was trying to pervert, take the koyach, because we know, as a rule, right, that every koyach that is used against us was a koyach that was meant to be used by us to bring about redemption.
Okay.
Right. So, for example, as we mentioned before, in the Holocaust, you had the concentration of Jews from all over Europe into camps, which is illogical. It doesn't make sense financially. There's no real strategy by that in terms of conquering power, right? So that was the koich of kibbutz galius, meant to gather Jews in from Europe to Eretz Israel, which we didn't take advantage of, was used against us in the end. The idea of achdus, right? We should have been achieving achdus on our own because achdus is important for the sake of gula, and because it's so important to Kosh Baruch Hu. The Gemara says that Achav went to battle, didn't lose anybody in battle. These people were kofrim. Right? These people were like epicorsim, but they were nice to each other. So therefore they lost nobody in battle. This is Gemara, so Yerushalmi speaking, right? And David Amalek's army went to battle, and these people were tzaddikim. They were living by Torah, but unfortunately, they just, the more religious you are, the more machlokas can result sometimes. And because they weren't as nice to each other as they were supposed to be, they lost people in battle. The Gemara is pointing out how hugely important Achdus is. Now that doesn't mean that the people in Achav's army got schar and what to come for mitzvahs they didn't do. Achdus is not going to give you schar for mitzvahs you're not actually doing. So David Amalek's army may have been more righteous and achieved way more schar and habab because of the fact they're doing all these mitzvahs. But in terms of protection in this world, in terms of divine favor to avoid disaster, Achdus goes a very, very long way because it makes possible.
Much more noticeable phenomenon than something of doing a mitzvah, which is
the Gemara is making that point, and so therefore we see that the koyach of Achdus that was imposed upon us with the Holocaust was a koyach that we ourselves should have used in a positive way and weren't using. So likewise, the koyach of Nun Shar Bina coming to the world that Mordechai was being put into the world so Mordechai could steer the Jewish people towards Kishucha B'Lev Echad and bring about a Kabbalah Torah Shpal Peh mi'ahava, right, to accept the oral law with love that was there for him. So no one was responding to that. So Haman realized, seized the opportunity. Let me use that koyach. Let me use, and I'll tell you, I don't have time for that right now. But let me use that koyach to be able to accomplish just the opposite, because the Kosh Baruch Hu allows that. If you're not going to use the koyach as I give to you for kedusha, I will let the enemies use it for tumah. It's a very dangerous thing.
And that's why he built the thing 50.
And that's why he built the 50 amos high.
And Nun represents Achdus. Is that what you're saying?
Well, Nun represents the Nun Shar Bina, which is a vehicle for Achdus, because Nun Shar Bina causes a person to become part of the bigger picture and leave behind petty life, petty issues. It's the pettiness that kills us in the end. It's the struggling over things that really don't really matter in the long run, but they matter to us right now because we don't have the big picture. Nun Shar Bina is the big picture. That's what it is. It's like looking at the world from Kosh Baruch Hu's perspective. Now, this is important. That was also important. This is very important.
You go so fast, Rob. You're so quick. I'm trying to catch up. You're going 150.
We'll go. Well, you can. That's where you can watch this in the comfort of your own home.
But I still have to understand the concept.
Yeah. So we'll go over some of these points again next week, B'ezras Hashem. But let's just get the material out on the table.
Yes, sir.
The Pri Tzaddik brings down that the 4 mitzvahs of Purim correspond also to the 4 oisios of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Beautiful, beautiful, Dvar Torah. Pshat what the day is supposed to be about. So one of the famous, one of my favorite stories of Purim, at least understanding. They once asked Rav Hutner to Tzal why we drink on Purim. People tend to lose it, but act very, very strange ways. They shouldn't do things. It's not so holy. the way people go about, even secular people celebrate Purim because it has that festivity, a festiveness built into it, and it's a drinking holiday that we can all. There's a real achdus achieved amongst the Jewish people because we all can get drunk that day. But he gave a mashal. He said, imagine two boys hundreds of years ago grew up in a small shtetl someplace in Europe, where they were friends. In kindergarten and gun, they went to cheder together. They learned yeshiva ketana together, yeshiva gadol together. Eventually, it became time to get married. And in those days, basically, people were very poor, and it was very hard to make a living. So if you could marry off your son to some machatanim who had money and could afford to support your son in learning in kola, that was a fantastic thing. Didn't mean you lived a high lifestyle like today with all the demands they make today from the future father-in-law, but it meant that you could survive. And sure enough, the shidduchim were made, but one was married out to someone in France, one was married to someone in Poland. They went different directions. And the day of departure, they of course they embraced each other. They expressed their closeness and their strong feelings for one another, and promised to keep in touch with each other, which they did for the first couple of years. But in those days, there was no internet. The train service was very poor and expensive. You could travel for days before you got to another place. And the mail service wasn't always reliable. So they would send letters back and forth, but after about 4 or 5 years, the letters started to slow down. They'd come at all eventually. Maybe here and there they might hear something, but over time they almost forgot about each other completely. As Ashkacha Pratis would have it, 20 years later, they happen to be traveling through Europe for different reasons, and they end up at the same train station, someplace in Vienna. But now they're older, a little heavier, black beckers, beards, the whole thing, and they walk right past each other, right past each other. And but even still, you can recognize somebody a little bit, and there's a sense of recognition. They turn around and they go, Shlomo, is that you? David, is that you? I can't believe it. After all this time, it's so great to see you. They run and they embrace each other. They drop their bags and they literally, holding on to each other. They walk to the local, closest bench, and they sit down. I heard about you, and you're learning your shiva, the kids, and they catch you up, and 5 minutes later, the whistle blows. The trains are leaving. So he turns and says, where are you going? And he goes, I'm going east. He's like, I can't believe I'm going west after all this time. We never get a chance to talk to each other, spend time with each other, and we finally bump into each other, and we have 5 minutes. That's it, only 5 minutes. It's not fair. So we can't wait for another train, because in those days, the train came once every couple of days. So he said, I have an idea. I bought this wine for Shabbos, but I have a holier purpose for it. Right? Here's a glass. You take, good timing, right? You take a glass full of wine. I'll take the bottle, thank you. And you go to your conductor and get him drunk. And I'll take the bottle and go to my conductor and get him drunk. And no one's going anywhere for at least a good hour. That's what that's the mashal he said. What was the nimshal? He said, everybody comes in this world as a neshama, right? We come to this world. The Malach teaches kol Torah kula. We come and basically we want to live a meaningful life, and we won't think about this because we're only a baby, but a neshama has no age. It's an adult from day one. The body constricts it. It makes it difficult for the neshama to function as a neshama, but that it wants to. So what happens, basically, you go through life, the conductor, the trains running from place to place to place to place to place, financial concerns, marital concerns, kid concerns, community concerns, you're running around. There's no time to be neshama anymore. So Rav Hutner itself said, on Purim is the one day a year you get the conductor drunk. Get the conductor drunk. So neshamas can finally connect to each other as neshamas. Not talking about bodies lying on the floor, rubbing for dear life, a pole or something because they're so drunk and getting sick and can't have even their suda because they're basically wiped out and they're acting rude. That's b'chlal not the issue. It's about getting the conductor drunk in order for the body to be neutralized, so now everybody can come out and act like the neshama, the nun, because neshama is nun shama, right? The nun sharbina that we're supposed to be on, to create the achtus that Purim is supposed to bring about. That's the mashal. So how do you actually achieve that? So if you had to list the mitzvahs of Purim corresponding to the osis of Hashem, right? The bottom hay, the last hay is the least holy. The vav is a bit more holy. The hay on top of that is holier yet. And finally, the Yud is the most holy letter of all. The most holy of all the letters of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. And you had to make the mitzvahs correspond to one letter. How would you rack them up? right? You've got Mikra Megillah, Batosi of Yonim giving gifts to the poor. You got Mishlach Manas, right? Which is just basically people sharing things with people who don't even need the food, and more than likely give it to somebody else because they can't even more than they can have. And then you have finally the Mishta. It's not even called a Suda. It's the only holiday you have a Mishta. Mishta is so chol. So chol. Suda is a Suda. Suda Shabbat, Suda Yantiv, Mishta Purim. It's a drinking feast. How, that's, we don't, we think of drinking feast. What do you think of people hanging around, drinking beers and getting drunk and, Bechlal, not doing very holy things. So if you have to line up the mitzvahs with the osios, the letters of Hashem's name, how would you line it up, right? What would correspond to the bottom, the final hay, the malchus?
Probably the Mishnah.
That seems to me the most obvious of all, right? It's a mishnah. It's like right there in the world of malchus, right? The second least holy mitzvah,
Mikra.
right?
Mikra.
Mikra Megillah?
Yeah.
Yeah, you would?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why?
Because the two others are the Mechaveru.
Oh no, but I'm not talking about in terms of what you know the answer to be. You're right.
I don't know the answer.
Then you're already one step ahead of us. You're already one step ahead of the whole thing.
It goes going along with what you're talking
Megillah's
about.
Torah. Megillah's Torah.
Yeah, but the Torah here, Torah is HaKadosh Baruch Hu is probably more interested in being moichel on his own kavod than
Okay, that's an interesting point.
For us to get along and this nun shari bina, which is supposed to bring us together, achdus.
Rabbi Akiva's students disagreed with you.
Well, that's why they died.
Exactly. but you can see how easy it is to be confused. No, you're right. No, there's no teasing. You're right. You're 100% right. But they were at a much higher level than we are, right? So you can see, and just look at the world around you. Look at the lack of achdus amongst the Torah world, right? And all because l'shem shemaim you can have sinas chinam. Right? You can find a reason to have it. There's like all kind of differences and different shitas and different hakpadas and all. 100%, right? We are much more divided than the secular world is because they have no issues. There's no issues to divide them. Teaches them. They all do their own thing. But we have issues. We have important life and death issues that are so important that we can have different shitas, different opinions, and therefore they can divide us.
People were just getting off the boat in Cyprus after coming out of the Holocaust, and they were given a rifle to fight for their life. Here in Eretz Israel, the Satmars call this place a place of Gehenna.
Yeah. So it's very easy. So therefore,
Would you fight for Gehenna?
Depends which part.
After coming out of the Holocaust?
The point over here is that it would seem to be the Megillah constitutes Torah, and therefore should correspond to the Yud. The next holy mitzvah would be Matanos of Yonim, giving to the poor, because you're giving to the poor. Helping the poor is an extremely important thing.
Going from the top
Now I'm going
down.
from the top down, right?
So you're talking Mikra Megillah would be the highest?
Because it's Torah. It's a level. It's not really Torah itself. It's ksuvim, but still, it's got this framework of Torah, so to speak. Helping the poor
Is this a political statement, or is this
no politics here.
Where are you getting this from? Then?
Which part?
The fact that it would be the highest.
No, I'm saying what I would think it would be based upon my own personal logic and connecting up, to my understanding of Torah
You
itself.
always say though that Torah is not going to save us.
Now you're getting political. Let's just finish this. Let's just finish this point, okay? So you have because we went to finish it next week already. Well, it's 9:15. So that's Torah. Then you have helping the poor, right? And then you have Mishlach Manas, which is a nice idea, but it's like giving gifts to people who don't even need the gifts in the first place. And the halacha is better to give more money to the poor people than to give Mishlach Manas because we know people to lift the spirits, the downtrodden, as the Rambam points out. And then finally, the last one would be the Mishnah, like you pointed out, right? Turns out it's exactly the opposite. Nafachu. Mamash like the opposite. Nun hafuch. Right? Like in Parshat Bahalosecha, the upside down nuns, the Jewish people left Har Sinai, right, with the wrong attitude, everything backwards, their whole perspective is backwards, so therefore upside down nuns, section off the Hebron Soa, because that's what it's all about. It's all, Purim is not about turning the nun upside down. Purim is about turning the nun right side up again.
Okay.
We left Har Sinai, we turned it upside down, as Tosfos pointed out. We left like kids hearing the bell and running away from school. We didn't understand and appreciate this is the impact of the Egel Zahav. We didn't appreciate what Torah really meant to us, so therefore we couldn't wait to leave school. So therefore, upside down nuns. And that's the way history has been ever since. Purim came to write the nun, put a right side up once again. So we're back to nun shrei bina. So therefore, the reason why I saw it the opposite of what it actually is, because I'm looking at the world through the eyes of the upside down nun, and Purim is telling you it's the other way around. Right? Really, Mikra Megillah is the lowest of all the four mitzvahs, because aside from the fact that Kosh Baruch Hu is not mentioned there, Torah is a vehicle to get to a higher level. Torah is not the be-all and end-all. You have to learn Torah Lishma and love it for all the proper reasons, but the ultimate thing is the Mod Alamot Lasot, right? And the condition to actually go and do, it's the starting point. It introduces you to Kosh Baruch Hu's Hashgacha Pratis, how he works in the world, to prepare you to go out there and to work with Hashem, to be a shutaf with the Kosh Baruch Hu in the completion of Ma'aseh Bereishis. That's what Torah is for. And then the next mitzvah is Matos of Yonim, to help the poor. Why? Because you now begin to impact, put Torah into the world by doing that. You have to we're working towards, like you said before, Reus and Achdus, and that's like Kishach HaBalei V'chad. The goal is Kishach HaBalei V'chad. That's the goal, right? So Matos of Yonim is the first step to go help somebody else. Connect it to something beyond yourself. Feel how fortunate you are compared to somebody else who's less fortunate in the end. Right? So that's Matos of Yonim. The only problem is, though, is that when someone comes to my door and asks me for money that does not belong to them, they want a handout, it's hard not to feel like an Adon, like you're a master, like you're the guy in charge. You're the guy giving, he's the guy receiving. You may go out of your way to come on in, give me a drink of, get a drink of water, can I help you out? You want something to eat? You want to sit down a little bit? Sleep, stay over, sleep over, something. But the entire time, the bottom line, you're the giver, and he's the receiver. So therefore, you can't feel one step above him at least, if not more. And some people in Mamish go their way to make you feel that way. All of our money belongs to Kosh Baruch Hu. We're just bank tellers for him. We're the ones he entrusted. You worked hard for your money. There's lots of people who work hard for the money who don't succeed in the end. Right? The Gemara in Brochas says very specifically, all financial success in this world is called tzedakah. Everything Hashem gives to us, it's all charity. We don't earn it, it doesn't belong. And don't think for one second, chas v'chalila, it's because you're living by Torah mitzvahs. You don't want to think that, because you want reward in the world to come for that. That's enormously huger than anything Hashem is going to give you in this world. So don't ever turn your schar in this world into schar for mitzvahs you've already done. So then what did you get it for? Because of course, Baruch, whatever it shows you to be his teller on a certain level, and this world, but it all belongs to Hashem. So ultimately speaking, there's no difference between me and the next person, but it's so hard to feel that way. You're not yet holding Kishach HaBalei yet with Matos of Yonim. It's just an introduction. The level up beyond that is Mishlach Manas. Now you're equal. Now we're dealing as equals. You don't need my gift. I don't need your gift. We're giving anyhow. Why? Reus. Kishach HaBalei Mishlach Manas is a higher level because that's the goal. The goal is to turn Halavai, your Matos of Yonim, can be in the level Kishach HaBalei the level of Mishlach Manas. That's what's supposed to happen. That's what you want to happen. It's just very hard to bring about. Mishlach Manas, it's such a bizarre mitzvah to put. Why put this in? What was it about Purim to put this in? Where do you have mitzvahs like this in any holiday? Like by Mitzrayim, go give some matzahs away for free. Why? Because you got freed, right? So why should you give mitzvahs? We don't, be chesedik, maschitim, beseder, right? But Mishlach Manas, because they were making the point, this holiday specifically, more than any other holiday, is about Kishach HaBalei because we're building towards Mishkan. We're building towards being the makom for the Shekhinah to be Shaira. It can't happen if there's no Achdus. So we're building towards Achdus, right? So by the time we finish Mishlach Manas, in advance of the Suda, by the Mishnah, we saw by Rav Hutner's example, the point of the Mishnah is now you can finally shed your outer exterior and act like a neshama. And where did we see this? It's mamash gevaldik. It's beautiful. It's just so. It's so nice when you can take ideas that are so beautiful, so complicated, so controversial, and to find the Gemara says exactly that. And you just see it from a whole different vantage point. There's Gemara Mod Katan. We'll do this, and then we have to come back to it next week, B'ezras Hashem. But the Gemara Mod Katan says the following thing.
Where is it?
Mod Katan Tes Amud Aleph. The Gemara over there says, you know which Gemara I'm talking about?
No.
The Gemara says,
after we hear it, we'll probably do.
that when Shlomo HaMelech finished building the base of Mikdash 480 years since we left Mitzrayim, he had to make a seal. Finish a Masechta.
Was on Yom Kippur.
Right? You have to finish Masechta, you make a siyum. It's so important to make a siyum when you finish a section of Torah that if it happens to be, not through any planning, if you happen to finish a Masechta, certainly more so even Shas, during the 9 days, we normally don't eat milk, eat meat and drink wine. Obviously, I started drinking the wine already because I can't get the words out properly. Right, so you can't eat meat, you can't drink wine. You push off the halachas of Avelus during the 9 days, and you make a siyum with basar v'yayin, because that's how important the siyum actually is to cover the Torah. Cover the Torah. How much more so if you finish building a base of Mikdash, which is a Rosh Hashanah, Mamash is Rosh Hashanah, the base of Mikdash happened to be Hashgacha Pratis. They finished just around the time of Rosh Hashanah. Amalek says we don't push off a siyum. I mean, I didn't plan this. They didn't plan this. This is the way it worked out. Hashem, he made it work like this, right? We need to make a siyum, right? And this siyum is not like a siyum like a Masechta, right? You finish a Gemara or a Mishnah, so that where maybe it's lasts 2 hours long. You make a Suda. We're talking about 2 weeks, every day, parting, holy parting, for the sake of honoring the completion of the base of Mikdash. So Chazal came up to Shlomo and said, "Well, wait, you got a little problem over here. You're gonna break through Yom Kippur, right? Chas v'chalila, same as a siyum. Not breaking Yom Kippur. You're gonna eat on Yom Kippur this year? Can we push out the siyum until after Yom Kippur and have 2 weeks consecutive right through Sukkot?" No, he says, no, we don't push off the siyum. They paskin 2 weeks siyum when right over Yom Kippur, and the Gemara says that year the entire nation ate on Yom Kippur because of the siyum. At the Raisa Mitzvah, Chiyuv Koros, and they ate on Yom Kippur. And don't think they weren't worried about it. How would you feel? Right? It's bad enough drinking just a shot glass of liquid at Yom Kippur when you're a person not well, but to have a feast, we're talking about a mishta. We're talking about, a Sudas mitzvah over here, right? It's even still, but they felt so bad after that they began to worry. So Baskol came out and said, Ashreichem, this whole generation is happy, you should be happy. Why? All of you are muchan l'chai holami. If my Yom Kippur is able to mechaper for my previous year, and I can live another one, I'm doing very good. But this Yom Kippur, that they not only didn't fast, they actually ate and celebrated, got them the will to come. Unbelievable. I'm always like in awe of how such important Gemaras go totally overlooked, where they're so crucial to understanding what we're all about. This is not an aberration. There's a very important message in this Gemara telling us what Yiddishkeit, what we're trying to achieve. It's all built in this Gemara right here. You have to know what it's telling you, because if you don't understand this Gemara, how to explain? If you can't explain this Gemara, you don't understand Torah mitzvahs in the end. How can this be? So, you watch, for example, if somebody, God forbid, is not well and they have to eat, the doctor paskins, the rabbi paskins, they have to eat on Yom Kippur. I don't know about so much in Eretz Yisrael, but in Chutz La'aretz, I used to see little signs go up in advance of Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, to buy special shot glasses that measure off exactly how much you can drink on Yom Kippur without, causing any problems. You got to eat, you got to drink. There are shiurim, it's all measured out. The doctor calculates. You can calculate too if you know better. But you don't want to eat more than you have. It's not like it's mutter now to eat. So therefore, take a napkin, put it up over here, or your steak, wash garlic bread, the whole thing. The meringue pie does it. What's the difference? I'm eating anyhow. No, it doesn't work that way. Why? Because every bite you take and every drink you drink more than you have to is a chiyuv koros. It's called eating on Yom Kippur for no reason. And drinking it. You don't know exactly? You're not sure? You drink a little bit more? Okay, Shemaim knows, right? It's hard to make some sense. Hard to know exactly how much. You're doing the best you can. And you did the best you can. Shemaim is moichel. But if you know, I don't need this piece of cake. I don't need this drink of whatever, but it looks so good, and it's Yom Kippur, I'm eating anyhow, and you drink it, it's chiyuv koros. It's like Shabbos, right? The kavana alone, right? Your intention to be mavar, to bore for this reason, mutter. You change your mind halfway through, it's chayav chatas. Just like that. Your kavana changes. So all of a sudden, you're eating on Yom Kippur for all the right reasons, and now you're for the wrong reason. Boom, just like that, in one mouthful. Chiv chorus. No one can punish you, but Shemaim. They know. So therefore, we're very makpid. And that's having a meal on Yom Kippur when a person is sick, and the doctor paskins, and you're being so medactic. It's a solemn day. Everybody feels Yom Kippur. And now you're going to keep Yom Kippur with a whole nation who's celebrating on a solemn day and eating food like there's no tomorrow and drinking wine and all kinds of things. What's the point? Otherwise, what's the point of having a siyum? If you're going to have like a Yom Kippur type eating when a person's sick, and so push it off. It's not a chupadik. A chupadik siyum on Yom Kippur, for the Beis HaMikdash means you're having a full suda. There's only one problem. If you, for 1 second during that day, celebrate for yourself, get a little bit too tipsy and get involved, you eat too much food, and you say, wow, this is for me. Every bite they took on that day, or they drank that drink, they drank that whatever it was, or they celebrated more than they had to, was a chiv kars. Chiv kars. So how did they celebrate? Totally Hashem Shemai. The fear of kars, it was it's like walking a tightrope with big, huge boots. It's so easy to fall off, right? It's so easy to make a mistake. So you're super careful when you're walking that, because you can fall off in a second. That Yom Kippur, they were so medactic that every eating they did was total Shem Shemayim. Every drink was Shem Shemayim. That it ended up being better than fasting. Because the ultimate is not fasting. The ultimate is being Mekadosh. That which Hashem gives to you. Yom Kippurim. It's a day like Purim. You fast on Yom Kippur, but it's not as holy as Purim itself, where you eat L'Shem Shemayim. That's the ultimate tikkun for my Bereshis and Adam Rishon. That's the Gemara is saying. You get to the point, the Mishnah, the whole point of the Mishnah is not a Suda, is different. The Kiddush itself envelops you and forces you to have to do things in a holy way, but it's influence from the outside. The Mishnah says, we're going to test you here. Are you a Purim success story, or are you a failure? Have you gone from Megillah, from the hay, the outside world, to the Chatzar? Right? Are you inside the Chatzar right now with Matanzah Yonim? Are you holding where you sing the hand of Hashem and you're closer now? Oh, and now you're Mishlach Manos. Are you in the Heichel? Where your mom is connecting up with the menorah and the Ketores, Mizbech Ketores, and the Shochan, and the Yed of HaKadosh Baruch, and you're so real to the point you're almost holding Kishuch B'Lebechat. Oh, did you get there? Then you're already holding by the Parochis now. Now we're about to enter the Mishnah. The Mishnah corresponds to the Yud, the reality that it's Lamalam Tetzaveh. You're no longer bound by the boundaries of the physical anymore. Like the neshama that's freed because the body's been neutralized. On that level, there's only Kishuch B'Lebechad, and that level there's only Hashrash Shechina. And that's what Purim exists to bring about. B'Zor Hashem, we have a Mer Session next week. We'll just tie it all back together and just summarize the ideas.
So